Okay, good evening and welcome. This is the October 5th, 2020 regularly scheduled school committee meeting. Call the meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts, March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. We have a full committee in attendance this evening. And we will move forward with our first piece of business, which will be approval of minutes. If I can have a motion, please.
Move to approve the September 21st, 2020 regular session meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Beth. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to open up to the audience at this portion. We have an opportunity for visitors to address the committee. I just want to apologize. Last time I didn't open it up the meeting to visitors, but we are doing that right now. So if you are in the audience and you would like to address the committee, now would be the time to do that. And if you could please just press the raise your hand button so that we know you're looking for us. Okay, we're not seeing any of those, so we're going to move forward.
There's
with committee.
Lisa.
You do have a hand.
Okay, yep, right under the gun, Lisa. You can bring her in, Don.
Yep, she's on her way.
Are you there, Lisa? You're on mute. Go ahead, Lisa.
It's slow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say just a few things, but I've been a resident of East Long Meadow for 40 years plus. I've got kids in 3 different schools. I've been a business owner in the town for over 20 years, but you know, first and foremost, I wanted to thank you guys, obviously the superintendent, the school committee, the principals, teachers. I do have to say, from speaking to people, we are very impressed this far with East Long Meadow's planning, implementation, the organization of the remote program so far this fall has been absolutely wonderful. So thank you to all of you for putting that together. The other thing I just want to say is, you know, as a resident, I don't agree or disagree with your vote to go fully remote. You know, I think you made the best decision at the time. We all have opinions. I definitely respect yours, and I just hope you can respect mine and, you know, those that maybe don't fully agree. I know there's no right call. There's no one fits all solution. So I'll support, you know, whatever direction you guys move forward in. But I just hope the residents' voices and the concerns, you know, are incorporated into what that will look like. So that being said, I just hope that we can look at the planning for the schools in either direction, you know, remote, hybrid, full in person, just earlier. You know, I get it that you guys made a decision, you're moving forward, but why can't we look at, you know, the data and look at the direction earlier just to kind of get the ball rolling? So, you know, can we assess the situation month by month? And I guess my question is the ultimate goal to get the kids back into school full-time in person? And if so, what triggers or quote data points are you relying on to initiate that transition? And when are we quote ready? You know, what data are you using to define what ready is? So I know you're meeting in December and that's the plan. So I guess, you know, like I said, just giving my input, but realistically, you know, with the kids and the teachers having, I guess, a timeline of January 15th for a possible transition, I'm asking you, is that a tight timeline? Is it going to give you enough time to pivot if we are going to hybrid or full in person? It just seems like, you know, meeting in December and then January 15th, there's families that have to plan, you know, what am I going to do with my kids? Am I going back to work? So these are just things I want to throw out there for you guys to think about. And last, just most importantly to me is my kids miss their teachers. They miss friends. They miss seeing human beings. And I just feel like they're very isolated, and I'm worried not about my kids only, but all the kids out there. They're home. They're in front of a computer. They don't have social connections. And I mean, my third grader is like emailing her friends in the classroom that she doesn't know, just trying to make friends. And my son is trying to, like, during the breaks in between the teacher being offline, and he's trying to like reach out to the other kids just to connect. It's kind of like, it's sad. I know it's the way it is, but it's just unnatural this long to just be stuck in your home. And I guess, it's hard to ask questions. The remote learning has been, as you guys have experienced, but the internet connections go on and off. The microphones go on and off. There's poor stream quality. There's kids afraid to speak, or there's too much speaking at once. And, the quality of education remotely is just not the same to me. And again, this is just my opinion. There's just no replacement for the in-person learning. So I just know 2/3 of Massachusetts schools now have the in-person, in one form or another, the hybrid or the fully in-person. But, us adults, we're allowed to go out. We go out with our friends. We go to dinner. We go to work. We meet friends. The casinos are open. Obviously with all the safety precautions, but why can't our kids go to school with the safety measures? Why they can play sports, but they can't go to school? I just don't know what message we're sending these kids about school priority and grit. So, those are just my thoughts. Again, I will support whatever direction we go, but I just ask the school committee, Gordon, everybody, please reconsider looking at our current education model earlier than December. And please do whatever's possible to work towards the ultimate end goal of getting our kids physically back into the school as soon as possible. And like my first grade son's teacher says every day, we've got grit, we don't quit. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. As we go along further in the schedule, or excuse me, the agenda tonight, we will be discussing a lot of these things. We do have our health experts joining us this evening. We'll talk about some of the parameters that we will be looking for in order to get our students back in the building, some of the benchmarks. And I just want to reemphasize that we continue to work on plans to either go hybrid or fully in on an ongoing basis. Our goal, yes, is to get our students back in the building. We fully recognize that this is not an ideal situation, specifically for the youngest of families, young students. We know there are struggles to this. As we have said before, the best we can offer, we would be able to offer would be a 2-day-a-week hybrid model. So as I said, we'll continue to monitor. We'll discuss further in today's agenda, and we'll keep moving forward. Okay. All right, we're going to move up. The next thing is opportunity for visitors. We already did that. We're going to go to committee and subcommittee communication. Does anybody have any communications for tonight from the board?
I just wanted to share that Maple Shade actually has a really great fundraiser going on right now for $25. If you make the donation, you can find it through their PTO, I'm sure through their website, obviously on Facebook. They will paint a Spartan head with EL underneath for a $25 donation. And I just thought that it was really kind of a cool thing, and I just wanted to spread the word past Maple Shade that that's something that they're doing. So we are going to get one from in front of the central office because that's pretty cool, and we hope that you all consider that. So.
Okay. Thank you, Beth.
Yep.
Anyone else this evening from the committee? No? Okay. All right, we're going to move forward then. We're going to begin our discussion on local health data, and we have some folks in the audience that we would like to bring forward at this point. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Mr. Thompson.
How are
I
you?
think we're good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
I think we also have Sarah Perez McAdoo. I don't know if that's the person who's East Lawn.
she's
Oh,
on her
there
way.
she is.
I'm just working my way down the list. And I
It's
will.
Kelly.
I'm
I
working
just
on-
saw Kelly in the office here. Yeah, there she is.
Kelly's having trouble getting on,
Yeah,
so.
I'm working on that too. Just,
Oh, okay.
Is Dr. Clark out there too? Do you see Dr. Clark? Don?
She's working to get on as well.
Okay.
so if they go through the link on the posting, they should be able to get in.
Okay. I know Dr. Clark was successful last time, so.
Yep. I don't,
And
I don't-
I sent out the link. I think it's the same link that Amy used. So hopefully they're going to be able to connect.
Amy came in as an attendee,
Right.
right? So,
That's the link I sent out.
okay. But I don't see Dr. Clark yet.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Anybody-
we'll get going. If you see her, Don, just bring her in, please.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And we have Kelly with us?
Kelly's sitting next to me right now
Okay.
because I gave her the passcode and it says incorrect passcode.
Okay.
That was linked to this meeting.
Dr. Clark's having difficulty.
And Dr. Clark is having difficulty.
We're just demonstrating the challenges of remote learning and remote meetings. We're
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
experiencing them. We understand. We understand.
Kelly, if you can send
Hang on
Dr.
a second,
Clark's
because
email to Mr. Mackey, we should be able to bring in Dr. Clark.
here's what I'm going to do, if you can bear
Or we
with
can
me for a
plan B.
minute.
No, he's over.
Um,
Yeah, he's over now.
Let me, just add them. They're both, so Dr. Clark, I don't have an email. Kelly, I can use her East Long Meadow email.
Correct.
Kelly's on her way over to see you.
All right. So Dr. Clark is the copy invitation. So Amy, if I send this to you, can you send it to Dr. Clark?
Don, best person to send it to is Kelly. Kelly can send it to Dr. Clark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have an explanation of why there are some people for whom the link does not work.
Okay, well, we'll start, Don. As I said, if either one of them come in, if you just want to bring them in as our discussion.
Yeah, I will work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Amy, perhaps you want to start and kind of get us up to date where the town of East Long Meadow is now and how things are looking?
Sure, that's no problem. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us back tonight. I don't know if many of you had had the opportunity to be introduced to the chair of the Board of Health, Dr. Sarah Perez McAdoo, who is joining us tonight. She was unable to join us last time. So I'll give you a quick update of where we stand now. I'll start with the pediatric cases. Currently, we have 2 positive minors that are in the school district. Currently, 5 school district pediatric members are in quarantine. Our numbers have increased to yellow for the last 2 weeks. The testing timeframes are about 5 to 7 days. Dr. Clark has a lab that she's getting them back in about 3 days, but that's not all of them. And I can tell you that this weekend alone, in less than 30 hours, we had 7 new cases. And 7 new cases in 30 hours is moving steadily towards a significant change. The last time we spoke, there was a little bit of a spike, and we said we're not quite sure if this is kind of the new level of a normal or a slow ramp up to something different. We haven't had 7 cases in a weekend in a very long time. So that is the update in terms of kind of the snapshot for the town.
Amy, would you be able to just explain what quarantining is and what isolation is? Because I think those are terms that are being thrown around that as being synonymous, and they're not synonymous?
They're not. So that's a great question. If you become a confirmed case through diagnosis with a lab test, PCR is the gold standard for Massachusetts. You'll be notified that you need to isolate. Isolation means that you should have contact with nobody else as much as possible unless you need medical attention. Quarantine, if you are a close contact or a household member of someone who is a confirmed case, you're instructed to quarantine. That means to stay within your house, but unless you need medical attention, it's not as strict as isolation. If you are a member of the East Long Meadow community, either in isolation or quarantine, and you need social support, we have wraparound services available that can bring you certain essentials in order to help you isolate or quarantine successfully. The CTC program also has resources that are available with a simple form that we fill out, that if you need greater resources than just some of the simple stuff that we might be able to provide, the state is also providing resources for those individuals. Gordon, does that help?
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Sarah, is there
And
anything
Amy-
that you'd like to add?
Nope, you're right on spot.
And Dr. Clark just joined us as well.
Oh, great.
Hi, Dr. Clark, are you there?
I'm here.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
No problem. Sorry it took me so long. I've had technical glitches.
There's always something, right?
Always.
Dr. Clark, just some of your experience, the virus as it relates locally, some of the testing trends, things of that nature?
Right now, I think we're doing fairly well. The amount of disease in the community is creeping up slowly, but not as rapidly as we were in the spring. I think we're all waiting to see where it goes over the next few weeks with us moving indoors and the windows closing and just people sharing germs that they weren't sharing. Also, we now hit the stage 3 part of the opening, so everybody's able to go places where they weren't able to go before. Testing is available. The turnaround time is still a little bit delayed. We can get somebody tested within 24 to 48 hours. Weekend testing is usually only one day of the weekend, and that kind of fills up fast. There's some walk-in sites that you can access online. Some of them require an appointment. Most of them will do drive up even if they require an appointment. Once you're tested, if you're asymptomatic, it's harder to get a test. And when you get the test, it takes longer for the results to come back. If you're symptomatic, we can usually get the test back within 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Dr. Clark, in getting a test, should we be advising if staff members or families come to us advising their primary care, should be making that referral?
I guess I would recommend that first. I think it's one of the fastest ways to get access. It's a phone call that someone on their staff has to make to get the appointment. Otherwise, you could be driving around town forever looking for a testing spot that is open, that will take you. The other thing with children, a lot of the spots will not take kids under a certain age. Some are under 8, some are under 2. So that affects our population.
Thank you.
Okay, and Kelly, perhaps you can give us some updates on things. We have some staff in the building, some students in the building, some of the protocols that we have in place already and things we're working on going forward.
Kelly, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
As far as the medical waiting room, Greg, is that what you want to know?
Yeah, please.
So we haven't had any students in our medical waiting rooms. We've had students that were positive but remote. we're ready. We have our PPE. We have, I bought special trash cans and baby monitors, and we're ready, but we haven't had any students, which is a good thing.
Right now, just, and it's something that we'll discuss again as we just update on the opening. We have about 106 students across all the 5 buildings, and they're students with significant and complex needs. So they're here daily with staff, but in that population, Kelly's saying that currently we have not had any positives. The positives that we have had have been with students who right now are receiving remote instruction. But we're still waiting on, Amy, to your point, we're still waiting on a few tests that we have not received back that are pediatric. Is that correct?
No, some of those individuals have elected to get tests and some of them have not. So those are 5 individuals that are under quarantine that have been directly exposed to a confirmed positive.
Okay, and those were pediatric situations?
Correct.
Okay. So one of the things that being in, for the most part, a remote instruction, our quarantining and isolation and sort of shutting down, to use a different term, does not go as far because we don't have as many students in our buildings. If these were cases that were on the bus or in an elementary classroom or in a secondary classroom, our contact tracing would go further and we'd be quarantining probably more individuals as well as more staff members.
Okay. Anything else for our medical professionals?
I just have one question. I know you had mentioned we've been in yellow for 2 weeks. And I don't even know if you can answer this question, but about how many cases away are we from potentially moving into red? Like if we've...
So I've asked DPH multiple times to give me like an equation that will allow me to predict when we're going to be there. They haven't done that, and I've been asking for about a month. So what I did is just figure out the percentage of population positive, what each case adds to our percentage of population. And what I've come up with, and it's not scientifically backed, but 19 cases, I believe, is the number that would put us into red. And right now we are at 16.
Thank you.
I wanted to add that I had gone to, I work in an elementary school, and I've actually gone twice for 2 COVID tests, more precaution than anything else. And twice I went to the AMR at the Eastfield Mall. It's over by where the JCPenney's used to be. Within 24 hours, you have your results. I think they were supposed to close at the end of September, but they've got new hours, 9 to 4. Just for anyone that's out there listening, you stay in your car, you don't have to get out. Not sure if they have a limit on the age of youngsters, but you're in your own place. You don't have to go inside. It's very convenient, and I usually get negative, so that's good. So just to let you know that's anybody out there, that's an easy place to go. So.
Okay, and Kelly, a reminder on the flu vaccine that the students are required to have. What's the date on that?
All students 6 months to, high school age have to have a flu vaccine by December 31st. And the only exemptions are medical, signed by a doctor, or a religious exemption, signed by a parent.
We'll be sending more information on that this week to all our families so that they have that information. We know that the health experts are worried about what happens when we get into flu season combined with dealing with a pandemic.
I think
We
the
do
only
have,
other,
sorry.
sorry, this is Sarah. The only thing I wanted to add is, Elizabeth, just to touch on the example that you shared, that might be part of the Stop the Spread initiative. So we've been doing that in the community as well. The great thing about that is that you don't necessarily have to call for an appointment. You just show up. There's no payment, is free. So taking full advantage of that, I think, is really critically important. So that is, you can usually more or less get a quick turnaround time for that as well. So the more people utilize it, the more you have the information. I think a really important part to understand is that that is for sort of a moment in time. That is not a prevention. This is what I understand now, maybe my exposure previously over the last few days. What I do moving forward, I may put myself at risk or, not. So it's not a prevention strategy. It's sort of understanding what the exposure is and what we would need to do to take care of that particular person if it's positive or prevent others from also getting it. And I think that's an important part that people should understand.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And I know it is free. I meant to mention that. The other thing I thought was interesting too, when I went a month ago, I drove right up. When I went on Thursday or Friday, there was 50 to 60 cars at any given time in line. I was blown away. I was like, I don't know if it was just the news of the week made everybody think they had to go, but there was a huge uptick in the amount of people that going. So it leads you to wonder, are the levels going up because more people are deciding to get tested that were maybe not symptomatic? Or is it because we are feeling ill now and we're taking that precaution?
So Amy, you touched on the numbers potentially rising here a little bit in cases in East Long Meadow. As we look to reopen and potentially come back to students in person more, either in a hybrid model or full, what are the benchmarks specifically? And this, I know we've talked about this, but for those listening, that we'll be monitoring and looking at as we go forward and continue to decide on when and how to open.
Yeah, I would say they're the same as the last time we spoke. So the availability of testing, the amount of time it takes to get the test results back, the amount of infection that we have in our community, specifically community transmission, not necessarily the long-term care facilities. So in the spring, we had large numbers, but the majority of those were in long-term care facilities. Right now, with all our active cases, we have one long-term care facility. So I think last week's numbers were 16 positives in the last 14 days, and one of those was long-term care. So that's a huge difference than what we were seeing in the spring, and it's something that I think would go into our my information to you while you guys try to make that decision. Sarah, is there anything I'm missing?
In terms of just the school mitigation strategies, which is what you reviewed earlier, making sure the school has the capacity to do the mitigation strategies and have the resources, as Kelly you mentioned, to protect. I think that's part of sort of the equations as well as what Amy shared so far.
And do we anticipate?
There was one thing when the woman came to speak earlier on comments, and I know you guys don't comment, but I'll comment. COVID isn't something you can grit past. Right? This is something that is in our community. It is something that when people have it, some people might experience mild to moderate cold-like symptoms, and some people will have much more significant symptoms. And if the perception is that we can just grit past COVID, I think that's going to lead to higher community transmission because there's a false perception that we can just get through this. So I wanted to make sure while I had an audience here that was listening, that COVID is real, and for some people it may not have a huge impact on their life, but for hundreds and thousands of people across our country, it is.
And Amy, do you want to remind us on the mitigating factors on how we can slow the transmission?
Right, so CDC and DPH, wearing your mask, staying 6 feet away from people when you're together, staying outside. I think Dr. Clark alluded to this by being outside where those droplets settle a lot faster than they do when we're inside. So being inside, we do expect the transmission rates to climb just because more people are moving inside. We're in confined spaces. If you're feeling ill, stay home, right? Like if you're feeling home and you don't know, is this cold, is this my allergies, use that opportunity to take a minute and just stay home and see where it goes and get yourself tested because everyone is reacting different to this virus. Sarah, anything else? Or Dr. Clark?
I think wearing your mask correctly is critical, covering the nose and the mouth and fully protecting. I think that's critically important. I think as I watched, I have myself 4 kids total who are going through the system, through the public school system. I have 2 in middle school, and I have currently 1 in high school and 1 that graduated. And I'm also really grateful for everything that the schools have done. And I'm blown away in terms of the middle school right now, going to their meetings in terms of everything. But watching young people together, I've seen many who are very responsible. And then I think we just get lax. Adults do the same thing. Wearing your mask properly is critically important in covering the nose and mouth completely. I think people forget, but that's really the main thing to protect. And we've shown that makes a difference.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you all, medical professionals, as we look forward to potentially getting more students back into the building. We will continue to rely on all of your expertise, so thank you for your time and input on this matter for us.
Mr. Thompson, may I just have one thing? The metric that the governor and the commissioner talk about is updated at the end of the day on Wednesdays. And that's when Amy was talking about yellow. That's the metric that they're using. But it is challenging in terms of the actual mathematical formula that they're using. But it will give you, if you want to look on the COVID dashboard, anyone can look. You get the weekly report for the local weekly report, and it's usually a document that lists all the municipalities.
And one of the things that we do to help kind of predict where that's going to be is, so we had 7 positives in the last 30, Saturday into Sunday, 7 positives. Those 7 positives all have household contacts. And then so we can take that household contact and get a amount of people in quarantine within our community and kind of say, there's going to be a portion of these contacts that could be positive. So where is our trend going, right? So the trending isn't just because we see 7 positives. It's knowing how many contacts they've had within the community that we can also predict that trend. It's not perfect. It's not ideal, but it's the only metrics that we have.
Do we have enough resources for contact tracing, Amy? I know that's what you're referring to, but East Long Meadow.
Right now, we're almost primarily using the Contact Tracing Collaborative. That's a free service offered by the state. Our public health nursing we were using a contract with Northampton. That collaborative has ended, and we've had a hard time keeping a nurse in the pandemic. It's been a really challenging time. So using that Contact Tracing Collaborative has been a really good opportunity for us to make sure that our contact tracing gets done efficiently and effectively while we're in transition. It's hard to be in a pandemic without a public health nurse.
Right. Okay. Anything else from the committee? No? Okay. Again, thank you all for your time and energy and efforts for us and for the community. And we'll continue to work together as we move forward here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll kind of piggyback onto our next topic, which is another opening of school update.
Okay, thank you. In your packet, you have a number of pieces of information regarding this, and we want to take you through that. We won't read word for word everything, but wanted to highlight some things. I think the biggest takeaway is we were able to put together an opening that we, like no other opening. None of us have opened for remote instruction or putting together new programs for our students with significant and complex needs. And so in order to get that done, not only was there a ton of work during the summer, but thankfully the commissioner did reduce the required days for students from 180 to 170, which really allowed us then to build on the 28 professional development workshops that we ran in the summer and provide all of our staff roughly 41 different workshops that allowed them to take a look at how do we make remote learning more robust, more engaging, and so forth. but then also start to connect with the social emotional piece, and how do we provide our students social and emotional support even in a remote setting. And I think we've been able to really begin to get at that. And I think obviously we're going to continue to improve. But just to walk you through some of that professional development, Mrs. Brown, I think, is going to provide some specifics around how our staff not only engaged in the professional development to prepare, but then also responded to us saying, you know, this helped, or hey, I may need this element as we continue to plan for other professional development opportunities. Ms. Brown, do you want to?
Sure. So I'm going to share the schedule with the attendance in a minute, just to show just how popular some of the optional PDs were. But I do want to say that this was definitely a collaborative effort with the ELEA. In particular, Wendy Lee and Elio Gonzalez really helped make sure all of this went smoothly. And that all of the optional workshops and some of the actual other mandatory workshops were run by staff. We had vendors come in, but we had 15 workshop presenters that were staff and 13 facilitators. And one was a superstar. Carol Forward was responsible for 30 hours of presentation with all her technical skills. So it was really successful, I think, because we had a blend of things that were required because they affected everyone. And then teachers had the opportunity to choose optional workshops based on what they thought would be useful to them. And so I'm trying to talk and share at the same time, which is always interesting. All right, so is the PD schedule showing?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a list of resources that were available that the district purchased for remote teaching. And so the teachers could just look and see what was most applicable to their subject or their students, and learn a little bit about it, and then decide if they wanted to go to these optional workshops. So, you know, of course, our attendance was great in the, where the green is, these are all the mandatory workshops. With vendors and such. But for example, there's a CAMI workshop here where 141 people came, and it was optional. So those optional workshops, when we kind of designed it so that people can pick and choose, but a lot of people chose to come to all of them. And so have said that while they feel a little saturated, they're also feeling very prepared for the remote teaching, and that they feel very grateful that all of those opportunities were there, and that they now have the opportunity to utilize them. And like Mr. Smith said, we had, in addition, we had a SEL PD towards the end of the 10 days. The elementary teachers attended developmental designs, which is created by one of the founders of Responsive Classroom, Chip Wood, but wanted to create something that had more of a focus on equity. So it's very much aligned with our work that we're doing with the Equity and Diversity Committee. And a lot of teachers who had been trained in Responsive Classroom wanted a refresher. And so it's interesting to see how much of these routines are being incorporated in the remote learning, and how the presenters really made it applicable to remote learning. And then secondary teachers and others came to a anti-racist pedagogy and identity safe PD, which also was very much aligned with our equity work, and built upon a lot of the work that people had already been doing, attending workshops this summer, book clubs and things. And that was also went over really well, and we got very positive responses from that. But the overarching goal was was just to make sure that everyone really understands the impact of racism and systemic oppression on our students' emotional health and how it affects their ability to thrive. And we wanted to have it so that there were some tangible tools that folks could take with them. So at the very end of the PD, we had a intentions board where folks kind of posted what they were thinking of utilizing. And that's really the kickoff of the year. We're going to obviously have more PD around that. And so out of all of the PD, the optional PD definitely got the highest scores for the survey, for the feedback, which makes sense because people are choosing it, so it's applicable to them. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate when a vendor comes. And then our vendor PD was hit or miss. We always try to work with vendors to try to make sure they're making it work for our staff, but sometimes we have better vendors than others. But we continue to work with them. And then our SEL PD was also very strong. So we're feeling really positive about the experience, and that we'll have more, and just how teachers really are learning with and from each other in this experience, and knowing that it's okay to try new things and that we might have technical difficulties, but these tools that we have learned are really helping to keep the kids as engaged and challenged as we can in a remote setting.
And so we're going to be following up on a lot of this professional development starting this week with the half day that's coming up for all of our schools, so that we can have some more professional development. We do have some vendors coming back, and I think we'll be connecting back, especially with the social emotional piece, as we get to November 3rd, which is a full day of professional development. Also election day, so please don't forget to vote. So we think the professional development and the support really enabled the whole school system to come together and start this school year, which is so unique, in the best possible way. I would be remiss if I didn't talk specifically about two departments that just did an incredible job and really had to almost pivot and go 180 degrees in the different direction. One is our information technology department. Not only were they tasked with getting out mobile devices when a lot of our mobile devices that were ordered are still on back order. And so it was preparing other devices, making sure that they can connect with software and so forth, and getting them out. And I believe in the 14 days running up to our first day of school, they distributed something like 784 devices, while also still responding to the IT help desk appointments and closing something like 579 support tickets. We're just, incredible numbers we had not seen before. So I really want to thank our IT department, who's directed by Ryan Quimby, and then also our ELPS Food Services. And I know that Mrs. Paul is in the audience. They had to almost reinvent what we do for food services and support our students. And they have created a new grab and go meal service that all of our remote learners can take, can participate in. And Mrs. Paul's right here. I want to congratulate her and her staff, and just have her explain sort of how they made that happen, because it's so impressive what they had to do within just a few short days. Welcome, Mrs. Paul.
Thank you very much. I also really have to thank my staff for being so flexible. We literally went from 0 to 800 lunches and added 800 breakfasts in order to boost some of our revenue. So even though that's not nearly as many meals as we had been doing in person, the required individually packaged items are definitely a time challenge that we're constantly learning and adjusting, and hoping to make our best prepackaged grab and go model available to all our remote learners and in person. We've created 3 separate working kitchens, and we staff them from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day in order to cover all the production and distribution of these meals. We're definitely thrilled with all the participation we've had from the community and the support, and we hope everyone continues to enjoy. So again, we appreciate and thank you for all the support, and hope to see everybody curbside.
Lori, are you still taking more students and families for lunches and breakfasts?
Yes, we're considered an open site at the high school. All the other schools are considered closed sites because they have the in-person students, and I'm just distributing meals for the students and the community. What I've done is create monthly surveys to get an idea of how much production we do need, because this is brand new. We didn't even know where to begin or what to look at. So we did the Google survey. I send that out monthly with the help of Superintendent Smith and Mrs. Brown, just to get an idea of some of our figures so that we have the food ready and available for everybody.
So the survey is how a family or students would let you know that they would want to sign up for it?
Yes, that would be ideal, but obviously some folks, didn't have an opportunity to do the survey in time. We do boost our numbers up a little bit so that if they've not had the opportunity to do the survey, they could still come and pick up a meal. We do distribute daily just because of the volume. I have every single refrigerator, freezer in all 5 schools packed. So to do anything but daily distribution, just can't foresee that happening right now. So we do have the daily distribution, and if they hadn't had an opportunity, we do have food available.
And just to reiterate, it's, excuse me, this is grant funded, and there's no charge for those meals.
Correct. It's universally free. The USDA has put in legislation through, we're hoping, December 31st of this year. It could pass legislation to go further, but again, it's based on the funding available through the USDA. But right now, it's universally free breakfast and lunch.
And just some feedback I've heard from multiple families that it's just a little touch of some regularness of school. Having lunch as they normally would is a nice thing for some families to do. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It was our pleasure, and we hope that everybody has an opportunity to do that, and it's helpful for them in their remote learning situation.
Great. Okay. Anything else for Lori from the team? Oh, we got some pictures up.
We do have some pictures. So this is just a look at the operation in the high school as they prep for any given day of distribution. And you can see it's quite a intense setup there. There's containers that they have to individually compartmentalize different pieces of the lunch that are going into those boxes. And so it takes a full staff to get it done. And so that's where our whole food service staff has reinvented themselves and are doing a fantastic job. We also wanted to give you an idea just as sort of what the in-person programs that we put together over those first few days looked like. And I'm sure our parents who may be watching on the link participated in some of these, but this is Meadowbrook. And then I think we have in the next slide or picture Maple Shade, where we were able to bring in our students and begin to connect and at least give an expectation in person as to what remote learning may be like. I think the next one is Mountain View, where we had students and staff working. You can see that we prepared for bad weather. Thankfully, we didn't have it, so we didn't need all the tents, but at least it was cover from the sun. And then at the middle school, they brought in their teams at each grade level and had it spread out across their athletic fields so that we continued to keep people safe, but also provided a personal touch, if you will, in terms of setting the tone for the year.
Hey, Gordon, if I could just interrupt, I think we're all set with Lori, and I think she was at a fun sporting event, so if we can probably.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yep.
Lori, thank you so much for your time and all your efforts, and your staff.
Thank you. Yeah, the volleyball game's going on behind me.
Awesome. Enjoy. Very cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Paul. Sorry about that.
Nope. Go ahead, please.
We wanted to keep her involved because we had that picture of our staff putting things together.
Oh, yep, right.
So this is just a look at some of the activities they were doing at Birchland. I think that's Dr. Allen there in the blue, but I'm not positive. Dressed obviously in a suit and tie. And then wanted to give you an idea, the high school is also connecting with their students. They're connecting, I think this is a Key Club meeting, and so certainly our students have come out and are meeting, keeping safe, but we're still meeting as a Key Club and thinking about community service and how we connect with the East Longmeadow community and surrounding communities to help in ways that we can. And so that's pretty impressive. Just to give you an idea, as we go through these pictures, we had 95% attendance at the in-person meetings at Meadowbrook. Mapleshade and Mountain View had 98% attendance. Birchland at their grade level meetings had 94%. And then even before we began school, the high school had run a 9th grade orientation as it traditionally has, although it was not a traditional orientation. They had outside meetings and then small groups going in, groups of like 5 to 7 to tour the high school. And they had a great turnout with that as well, around 79%. So that was nice to see. This happens to be, I believe, our chorus getting together outside and protecting themselves by being at least 6 feet away. But we are trying to connect in person as many ways as we can. And with that said, I don't know if we have any more pictures, Mrs. Brown? That's it. Okay. I wanted to let you know, and I said this earlier, that we do have in-person programming going on in all our schools. And we started that back on the first day of school, September 16th. And predominantly it was our students who had significant and complex needs. But we do think that this may grow over time as we're looking at different data points and information to see who might be struggling with remote instruction and so forth. And Dr. Welsh has been incredibly integral in all this planning and sort of making it happen, which is not easy to do. Some of that making it happen literally meant that Dr. Welsh was contacting many different families throughout the summer to see where they were, what kind of support they may need, and how we can put together programming that's going to work as we deal with COVID-19 and a global pandemic. And I know, Dr. Welsh, you might want to add some things, specific items, just to sort of give people an idea of how we're running some of the programs right now.
Sure. So thank you. And certainly, I would only have to echo what everyone has said, which is that this would not have been possible without the support of central office and the principals, obviously the special education teachers and the related service providers. Everyone has really gone above and beyond. And currently the group of students that are attending school in person are, as the superintendent said, students with significant and complex needs. As these are students who, prior to the closure, have in their IEPs placement in a self-contained classroom. So programs that are already in process, if you will. We have those programs throughout the district, throughout the grade levels. And those are the students that are in school now, students who typically spend more of their time in a special education setting than they do in a general education setting. Many of these students receive a lot of related services. And when we look at things like remote learning, such as we did in the spring last year and so forth, you know, many of these children haven't gotten physical therapy or occupational therapy since before the closure. So it was obviously very important to everyone that we prioritize the needs of our students who have, again, the most significant and complex needs. However, as the superintendent said, the next layer of what we're going to be doing is working at the building level to look at students who may be struggling either to address their IEP goals or to address just the challenges every day that they face with remote learning as you know, the weeks go on. Each of those students has a special education liaison, and certainly they know that we're hoping that they will be able to collaborate and support some of these students so that they can be more successful with either the academic component, the social component, the technological component of their school day. In each of our 5 buildings, we have teams that were created last year through Mrs. Brown, multi-tiered systems of support. And so those groups are going to be looking at the next layer of referrals so we can see the best way at the building level to support each one of those students. It's really been wonderful to see how innovative the buildings have been in terms of all of the things that Amy already spoke about. So wearing PPE, staying 6 feet apart. You know, most of these instructional groups consist of about 8 students. So they're, you know, many of them are spread out into 2 different classrooms, and we're using our paraprofessional staff in very different ways. Mr. Smith, Mrs. LeBombard and I did 5 traveling PPE fashion shows where we demonstrated, you know, how to put everything on, take it off, and keep it safe, because many of these students are students who would struggle doing that themselves. So it's really been quite an endeavor, but again, we were initially expected to provide for our students with significant and complex needs. And now we're hoping that we can expand that as safely as possible, but focusing more on the building level than rather than at the district level. Does anyone have any questions? So just again, thank you to everybody. It really has taken a village. There's no question about that. And so far, I think we're off to a very good start.
And I would agree. You know, we are incredibly blessed to have the community we have, because there's no way we can pull this off without our families that are doing just incredible job dealing with the different challenges. Because we know that going predominantly remote puts some challenge on family life, and you know, we certainly want to acknowledge that and thank our families for all the incredible work they're doing. Right now, we're averaging across the district in terms of remote attendance 98.5%, which is pretty incredible. So we hope that continues, but that's certainly one of the data points that the MTSS teams in the buildings would be looking at, along with a variety of other pieces of information so that they can put the best support in place for students. Questions around the opening or anything that we touched on?
Okay, I think we're good on that opening. Thank you for that.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move forward with our next piece of business here. We have an update on fall athletics.
And I think we have Mr. Page in the audience. We might need to elevate him to a panelist.
Coming in now.
Thank you, Don.
Yep. Kevin here too, or no?
No.
I think just Mr. Page is here.
Hey, Frank.
Kevin's actually working the girls soccer game that we have going on our Deloitte's. It's actually kicking off as we speak.
Very good.
Yeah, 7 o'clock. Perfect timing.
7 o'clock start.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for wearing the East Long Meadow colors there. Very nice. But as all of you know, and I'm sure Mr. Page can walk us through more of this because he's on the PVIC board and they had a meeting this morning. But similar to a lot of the guidance, we've been operating on the guidance that was provided to us earlier in the summer, really, late August, I think was the last time they amended it, coming from the EEA. And so we were operating under the idea of outdoor groups being at a capacity or maximum of 50 people. That's how we initially set up some of our policy around spectators. And then Friday night, after the end of the business day, all of that changed with an expansion for communities who are considered low-risk communities. And at the moment, even being in yellow, we're still considered low risk. And so the expansion of what can happen with spectators, I believe, if I'm getting this correct, and Mr. Page, jump in if I'm not getting it correct, is that we are then allowed to start to look at a larger group if our stadium can handle that, going to a maximum of 100 spectators, excluding the teams, the coaches, and the officials.
Mr. Smith, just to touch on the risk level, do you know if we go a third week in yellow at moderate risk, are we then no longer a low risk community? Is that what triggers that?
They do ask you to look at 3 weeks of that local report. I don't know about the yellow piece. I do know that if we were 3 weeks red, we would have to stop all activities in terms of sports. But I will look into, or I don't know if Mr. Page knows.
Yeah, the current guidance is around red. I didn't see any language around yellow, but it's you have to go 3 weeks without being in the red in order to stay in phase 3, step 2. So it's basically 3 weeks of yellow, green, or is it gray?
Gray.
Third category.
We're sure that the yellow fits in that same category? Not, it has to be red to leave the low risk community?
That's the language I read the other day in the new guidance that came out on Friday. I don't have it handy at the moment, but
We should maybe check with Amy on that going forward, just so we know. Okay.
Yep.
It actually coincides with the same way, at least the commissioner is describing the metric, that you can go 3 weeks yellow and have in-person learning, but if you're 3 weeks red, then you should go to all remote learning. But we will double check that.
Yeah, it's more the phase 3 part 2 portion that if we are truly a low risk after 3 weeks of yellow, that's, I guess, my question.
Right. We'll double check that. Mr. Page, do you want to just walk us through where the PVIC is right now in light of this new information?
Yeah, so the guidance came out Friday evening. I did reach out to Mr. Smith and Mr. McGee right when the guidance came out, saying that we should probably bring this to the discussion that we were going to have tonight anyway, just to, add a curveball to what we were already trying to, modify when it came to the guidelines around spectators. So with that guidance of expanding from 50 spectators to 100, and also removing the language around the number of spectators per athlete ratio that they had in the guidance prior, it does force, I think, all the communities around us to reopen their discussion on how they're going to allow spectators into their events. Based on the conversation that we had this morning, the PVIC does want to take a slower approach to this. One, because for the most part, sports had only just started on Thursday. So there's a number of communities who have yet to even host a game before this guidance changed on them. So the policies that they have already in place haven't even necessarily been practiced yet. Two, they're still trying to figure out some of the logistical stuff in terms of, staffing and meeting the needs of their local communities. So what they wanted to do was take a step back, see how this week played out in terms of their recommendations for home spectators only. The athletic directors are meeting on Wednesday to discuss how things are going at their level. And then on Friday, we are reconvening as an executive board to basically see how this week played out with the home spectators only. And I will say I did, make a motion on behalf of East Long Meadow and push to open the door for the potential of, visiting spectators attending games. They did want to get through this week to see how things played out before they changed their recommendation for the whole conference. So right now, they are still, for at least for the next 4 days, recommending that we only allow in home spectators. But the one thing that they did want to discuss today and did want to expand, so I think this is something you might want to discuss as a school committee, is allowing one home visitor to attend indoor volleyball matches.
One home spectator?
One home spectator. So that also expanded to gymnastics for schools that host fall gymnastics programs, but we obviously don't have gymnastics, so that doesn't apply to us.
Frank, what's the indoor capacity for our gymnasium? Do you know offhand?
It's approximately 700 and change.
And the guidelines are 40% capacity, is that right? Or 50%? Do you know?
40%.
It expanded from 40 to 50%.
Okay.
But the guidance does still say for indoor athletic events that for any sports under the age of 21, that it is still a 1-to-1 ratio for athlete to spectator.
1-to-1 home and visitor, though.
Yes.
In terms of those guidelines.
Yes.
You're proposing one home only.
To start, yeah.
So would it be prudent if we did the one for this week and then 1 and 1 starting next week, and then for outdoor, 2 home this week, and next week start 2 home, 2 visitor? You know how I feel about the visitors, and I'm not happy that we're not allowing those families from other districts into our facilities for no reason other than logistics, which I think we can work out. So I really would like to push for that, but I understand the ones take a little bit slow. So if I'd be willing to go that far and say, all right, we'll go this week, but then next week I'd like to open it up to the visitors.
I will say this, and I did communicate this to Mr. Smith earlier today. The biggest obstacle that we face in not going along with the PVIC recommendations and going our own way. And I will say, like I said, I did make a recommendation today to try to open the doors for visiting spectators to attend. Yep. If we don't have buy-in from the other schools, it does make it harder logistically to allow in visiting spectators, because we would, just like we're doing with our home fans, need to know who would be attending the event, as opposed to, them just giving us that information at the gate upon arrival. We have a higher level standard for our home fans. So,
but your proposal was to get a list from the opposing coach, right, in advance. And so if we asked for that list and they didn't give it to us, then we wouldn't allow them in. If we asked for the list and they gave it to us, we let them in. I think we forced the issue because it sounds like it's going to inevitably get there.
I think it will too.
The reason
we'll get there.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the reason for it is COVID per se. I know it's all COVID related, but it's not the transmission of the disease. It's more the logistics of working it out. So I think we can handle it here in East Long Meadow. So I'd like to push the issue. And if we as a committee decide collectively to go with the modifications for this week and then increase it to visitors next week, I think it gives a little nudge to the league maybe,
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I'll say this too, for districts, I think what you're proposing is fair if you're starting that next week, and I think it does give districts an out who are uncomfortable with that proposal to honestly just not provide us a list. You know, so.
Yeah, and I'm a full proponent of each individual district deciding what's best for themselves. I mean, this committee, has authority over the grounds here at the school, so it should be each individual district that makes the decision for whom is allowed to attend the events, I think. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts from the committee?
The only question I have, Frank, is as far as indoor volleyball and spectators, is there any concern about ventilation?
At our individual site?
Yes, or lack thereof ventilation. Do we have enough ventilation to accommodate what they're allowing us to do now?
Yes, one of the capital projects early on in my tenure as superintendent, they added a CO2 exchanger I believe, both in the auditorium and in the gymnasium. So you have, as that either room fills up, you have a CO2 exchanger that is opening up and pulling CO2 out.
Well, obviously the building can't, the stands can't be full, but my question, you answered my question because my concern was they keep talking about ventilation and indoor, indoor classrooms and things like that. So if we're going to start allowing, you've got athletes and you've got fans, as long as the ventilation is proper, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Does all of that make sense?
Yeah.
And the logistics, Frank, we can handle in terms of requiring the social distancing, the mask enforcement, numbers enforcement.
Yeah, are we talking indoor or outdoor events? I would say for both. I think we can easily meet those guidelines for both if we're expanding the guidance for 2 and 2. I think there's certain ways where you can argue that it's more manageable by going the 2-2 route, where you have the list from the opposing school, you have the list from the home school, and now you're not trying to manage where the other odd 50 spectators might come into play for your home crowd.
Right. Okay.
I just want to add one thing quickly, because I had a couple people asking me this week, and I see there's comments about it too. Why are we allowing sports, but we're not letting our kids into the school? And I just wanted to let people know that, first of all, participation for sports is a family decision if you want your child to be in it. With the exception of the indoor volleyball games, everything is outdoors. The kids are socially distanced. There's a lot of space between them. And it's one small little measure to have normalcy for the kids, and that they have opened up the sports for any student. If you might not make varsity, but you have the opportunity to play a sport you might not want to have normally have played. And, I think that it's hard for families to look on and see this, especially those that maybe don't have kids who are old enough to be in our sports programs. But I just want to just want people to understand that's why we're doing it, because the kids are outside. It's a step into normalcy. I'm hoping to see more other extracurricular activities start to gear up as time goes. But I just wanted to share that with people out there, because I think there's some confusion, and it's because it's outdoors. It's a family choice. It's, if you're not comfortable with it, your student doesn't have to do it. Whereas when it comes to us educating your kids, we have to educate them. And I just wanted to throw that out there for the world to know.
And just if I can add a couple comments to that to just kind of support what you're saying, Ms. Boucher, too. We are running other programming here beyond just athletics. Our chorus program met this past week. We have been running SAT programs on the weekends, so kids have the opportunity to take those tests. There's just a lot more logistics to the day-to-day operations of running a school day, which I think is why you made the decision you did. But there are other programs that are still connected to the building that we're still running,
Right.
And running differently.
Right.
Running differently.
SATs far spread out, far fewer students in each room, more.
We're averaging between 5 and 7 students testing in each area. It's we're managing it. We're capping the number of students who can test at any given time, but we are making things work just in a little bit of a different way.
Okay, any other questions? How are folks on the proposal for 1 indoor home, 2 outdoor home for this week, and then next week 2? This is more complicated. I'm making it more complicated than I should. How are folks feeling about that proposal?
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I'm good with it. I'm comfortable. I think the outdoor especially, there's so much room.
Yeah. So I'll entertain a motion to.
Can I ask one question? Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Who's maintaining the records after the fact? Is that something that like Frank, are you maintaining the records of like attendees? Like where are all those being kept after the sporting events in the event that we end up with a situation where we need that contact tracing?
So right now we are keeping, right now it's only been 1 home spectator per event. So Mr. McGee has a list of all the people who have those. Basically, we've been giving out passes to each individual student, and they're providing that to their parents. So we have that list of who has all those passes and who are providing those to from game to game. We're gonna have to expand our record keeping if we are obviously expanding to 2 home spectators and then potentially the visiting teams as well. But what we're proposing, if we allow visiting spectators to come in, is that those schools are going to provide us a set list. So, who's on that list will not vary from week to week. But basically, if you are a parent of Joe Smith, those would be the only 2 parents who would have that access for the season. So it would be limited. You can't change from week to week. You can't say, okay, my brother can go to this game, my uncle can go to that game. There still will be control to it.
And I'm imagining that this might be going too far, but we might know families and their faces when it comes to visiting spectators. Like, are we going to have the need to be checking IDs to ensure that the people who are there are actually the people who are saying they're going to be there? I don't know that I would know somebody from.
I don't think we have to go that far, Sarah, because I don't think we have to go that far.
We will have a team roster of the opposing team, and next to the roster we'll have the name of the 2 attendees who would be allowed to attend that game. So it would take some levels of deception for families to try to play the system. And the hope here would be, all the communities are trying to be safe across the board because we're allowing these programs to run.
Sounds good.
Okay, I will then entertain a motion that starting today, 10/5, we will allow 2 home spectators to all home games per athlete, and 1 home spectator per athlete for volleyball. And then beginning on, what month are we in? October 12th, we will allow 2 home spectators per athletes and 2 visiting spectators per athlete for outdoor events, and 1 home spectator and 1 visiting spectator per athlete for volleyball.
I think that's a so moved.
Yes, it
Perfect.
is. And
I set that one up for you, Beth. Motion made by Beth, seconded by, who's the second?
I'll second.
Bill seconded it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Page, thank you. Yep.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Go ahead.
Am I allowed to text Mr. McGee right now to allow soccer parents to jump into the game?
We did make it effective today.
You're about to make some parents very happy.
Good.
We got to make the vote, though. Did we vote yet?
Okay.
We did.
Yep, we did 5-0.
Okay, we did vote. Yep, you're good, Frank.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Page.
All right, well, let's keep moving. We discussed earlier in executive session, we have a memorandum of understanding with Unit E for mobile devices and self-insurance.
Move to approve the MOU with Unit E Mobile Device Self-Insurance Program as presented earlier this evening.
Motion made by Bill,
I'll second.
second by Beth. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have another MOU that we discussed about fall coaching stipends.
Move to approve the MOU with fall coaching stipends as presented earlier this evening.
Motion made by Bill
I'll second.
and second by Beth. You know you guys are boxing out our other 2 members. I'm just going to point that out there right now.
I won't say it.
That's fine.
Perfect.
Just so I'm lightening things up a little bit. Motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. That carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay. So we did send, we had as we discussed last time, we had an inquiry from Commissioner Riley. We did respond. I did pen a letter with help from Superintendent Smith, Mrs. Blair, and you all have a copy of that letter. We did send it off to Commissioner Riley, and we have not received a response. But we did meet the 10-day requirement. So questions or concerns on that?
Was there any guidance given that we will receive a response on any of the stuff that came out, or is it just you're wondering if we're going to get a response?
It didn't say anything in the original letter. There was nothing that said that there would be a response. I'm just assuming that.
Other than a possible audit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I saw that, but all right. Good
We'll
job.
see what happens.
I
Yep.
thought it was well written. I thought it was not aggressive. I thought that it was fair, and you just told me exactly how we felt. I mean, we needed guidance. We did what we wanted to do, and I think, you know, for now, it is what it is. So I think you did a good job. You know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we have a discussion about potentially requesting some community preservation funds for our stadium.
So about a week, or actually now probably 2 weeks ago, the capital project that we had submitted last year as part of our capital for fiscal year 21, which we're now in, that capital project was around resurfacing our track that's out in the stadium at the high school. Tracks with this type of surface generally last somewhere between 6 to 8 years. At least that's the recommendation as to when you should resurface. We're now into year 9. And unfortunately, that item, that capital project, was not picked up in the town's final budget. So the town manager's office and the Department of Public Works and I worked together to put together a proposal to the Community Preservation Committee to possibly seek some funding to support resurfacing the track, which certainly does support our athletes in really all sports, because they're sometimes when sports are looking to condition, they'll get onto the track, even though it might not be cross country or track and field itself. But it also supports the community. The track generally will have at all hours group walking or running on it and exercising, and that happens not only during the weekdays, but it also happens on the weekends. So it certainly is a community track, if you will, and this might be a way to accomplish that capital project by presenting first the application to the Community Preservation Committee, but then obviously meeting with them and going through the whole project and what it entails.
How is the condition right now overall?
The condition right now is certainly usable. We've done patching. We did in the fall of last year. We worked on some of the drainage around that had been crushed over time, and so it certainly is functional. The point is, we would like to act now so that something that is still a costly project doesn't become a monumental cost, where not only do they have to resurface, they have to dig down and reset the whole piece underneath, the whole framework, if you will.
All right. I remember back in the olden days, I think it was a town meeting, it was, of course, we're going to support fixing this. Remember that, Greg? Bill?
Yeah, only about 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's gotten a lot of use, and it's certainly an asset to the community. And if we're able to fund it through community preservation, it's certainly what those funds are intended for, in my opinion. I know, you know, as we said, Long Meadow has used funds for the same issue, so hopefully we'll be able to go that route.
And we're not asking for the entire cost of the project. We are, and we've always said that we would do this. Any type of revenue that comes in through the rental of the stadium, the field, and the track, we keep in a revolving account, and we're putting, I think, Mrs. Blair, am I correct, about $28,000 towards this project?
That's right. That account, I believe right now has about 30,000, maybe a little bit more. So of course we always want to leave a little bit of a balance there for our minor emergencies. But we felt compelled that we would be able to contribute $28,000 towards it, which is fabulous if we could partner again with the town on, you know, a wonderful project like this for the community.
Yeah.
What's the time frame on this application? Do you know yet, Gordon?
No, got it in before October 1, which is one of the deadlines. But I did reach out to community preservation, but I have not heard back as to when we might be presenting in front of them. So wanted to make sure that the school committee was fully behind this presentation. And then when we're asked to present to community preservation, we certainly will do so. I think even though I signed it for the school department, it really is a combined or a collaborative effort between Department of Public Works, Town Manager's Office, and the school department.
They helped us with the playgrounds a little bit, right?
Community preservation certainly helped us with the playgrounds
Very good.
at all 3 schools, and we acknowledged that with signage that we put up.
Right. No, because I see them being used off during the summer, things like that. It's nice because I know kind of got on the tail end of it with one of my kids, so it was appreciated, very much appreciated by them. So
Definitely.
Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to endorse the submittal of the track resurfacing to community preservation for funding.
So moved.
all right.
Motion made by Bill.
And I'll second.
Seconded by Antonella, even though she's on mute.
Okay. Oh,
Thank
she
you.
is? Okay. I thought I
Right,
saw
that was a second?
move.
Seconded by Antonella. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. That carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. Okay, next up, we have the MASC delegate coming up.
You missed the revised calendar.
Oh, yeah, I crossed it off already. Yeah, backing it up. We have a revised calendar to discuss. Thank you, Bill.
So in your packet, and I think in the online version it's in color, which sometimes is easier to read as we have different colors for different things. We met with the ELEA to look at the fact that we're in a unique year. We started September 16th, which was a much later starting date than we've ever had. And so we're quickly approaching, as we move into October, half days that right now might not be the function of those half days, whether it be for parent conferences or professional development. It might not be the right timing. We did choose in those discussions to keep the October 9th as a professional development day. That's this Friday, so that's a half day. One of the reasons is the fact that we had already contracted with vendors to come in and work with our staff around some of the software we're using. And scheduling that again can be challenging. However, we did look at the October 21st date, which had been a half day for parent conferences, pre-K to 5. And it may make sense given that we've just come off of in-person meetings with parents, and many of the buildings have developed times within their schedule where they might meet with parents and discuss, obviously individual student support. So we're thinking of making the 21st, the proposal is to make the 21st of October a full day, not a half day anymore. And then move parent conferences to the December 10th half day. So it'd be parent conferences pre-K to 5, and then professional development 6 through 12. Then the one other change that we made was going into January. January 22nd was originally a half day, looking at the end of the second marking period and or first semester, if you will, both at the high school and the middle school. We have moved that 1 week, given the late start. So we're moving that half day to the 29th. That will be the end of the second marking period and the semester for Birchland and the high school. And that would be a good day to have a half day for professional development for the district. Excuse me.
And then just in terms of the rest of the calendar, we decided collectively to hold off as we coordinate our plans after or into January. So we stopped at January. Questions on the calendar? So really, the only substantial change was that one half-day that went to full, that families will notice. Right?
One that's upcoming. So October 21st, and we'll get some communication out to families that that's the change as we post this. So they know that that's coming, and that's going to be a full day.
Right, and then the 22nd of January is now the 29th would be the half-day. That's the other change.
Correct.
Okay.
22nd will be a full day. 29th becomes a half day.
Questions, concerns? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the new calendar.
So I'll move to change the 2021 calendar as
Presented.
shown.
Motion made by Beth,
Second.
second by Antonella. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so the new calendar will be up on the website, and then we will message out to families about the changes.
We will. We'll get a message out so that they're aware that obviously this Friday is still a half day, but the 21st now is a full day. So hopefully that prevents conflict and challenges, at least on that one day.
Okay. Okay, moving right along. We are in need of a MASC delegate. What is the date on the conference this year?
Saturday, November 7th is the delegate assembly, and as I said to both Gordon and Greg this afternoon, just from a personal standpoint, I wasn't happy when I found out that it was going to be on a Saturday. It's traditionally been on a Friday, but given the fact that I am on several committees and kind of like going all week long now, and this is my choice, but I am not interested in being the delegate this year for the specific reason that it's on a Saturday, and I kind of reserve the Saturday to family time, the weekends to family time, because I am so busy during the week. That's just, we'll take it 1 year at a time from now on, given we don't know what the future is going to hold. But for, like I said, for this year, I'm not interested in being the delegate, and it is on Saturday, November 7th. The delegate assembly starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but the actual program starts at 11 o'clock in the morning, so it could tend to be a long day.
How long do you think that might go, Bill?
Given that, it's really hard to say because, when the delegate assembly is live and in person, it's a lot easier to get through the questions, the amendments, the procedures. Now that you're talking about doing it virtually with possibly 250 people, up to 250 people, possibly more, sitting in a virtual location, I think it's going to take a whole lot longer. They haven't even figured out how they're going to do the voting yet, because how did everybody raise their hand? I mean, how do you do that? How do you, it's just, there's a lot of unknowns given the circumstances, and I really don't have any contacts or anything to do with MASC anymore. But this is stuff that I get from people that I still reach out to, that they're flying by the seat of their pants, literally, because they don't know how this is all going to play out, depending on how many people actually show up that day.
And it's virtual, right? It's all virtual?
Everything is virtual. There's nothing in person. They talked early on, not knowing what was going to happen, possibly having it in a hotel. They could use several conference rooms in a hotel in the eastern part of the state, social distance, and set it up that way where it would probably not be as cumbersome as I believe that this year is going to be, given the fact that it's virtual from your home and sitting in front of a computer trying to navigate the challenges that we all run into these days.
Right.
So why do they say the locations like the regular resort and conference center when it's
because that was printed out well in advance. That was probably printed almost a year ago.
Yeah. All right.
Printed in March, probably had been printed just as we started to close down.
Yeah, but they talk, they plan, as soon as the conference ends, they start planning. So they had, nobody knew last November when we left the conference that everything was going to be shut down 5 months later because this pandemic was taking hold.
Well, I
So
don't
I-
mind doing it. I mean, I know I've been the alternate for many years. I've got no problem unless somebody wants to do it. I'm okay. You know, they might get me on a cell phone somewhere, but I'll do it.
How is the rest of the committee with that?
Like I said,
Good.
it's
Good.
see what happens next year, but for this year, I'm not interested.
I'll entertain a motion to appoint Beth as our MASC delegate.
So moved.
Motion made by Bill,
Second.
seconded by Antonella. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, Beth.
Thanks. I'm so excited.
Thank you, Beth.
I go to the Chatham's
Yeah.
Bar Inn and I'll sit on their veranda.
There you go. Now
There
you're
you
talking.
go.
I
Make-
can't afford more than that, but
Make the best of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beth, for offering.
in my back deck,
Yeah. Hope the weather's nice.
I'll put an umbrella over me. Bundle up.
Okay. We have our final order of business. It's a little bit lengthy, but we have the resolutions for said meeting that Beth will be attending. So if we could kind of quickly go through them and collectively decide how we feel on each resolution. Typically, we do kind of a brief synopsis of each one as they are moderately lengthy. How you
I
feeling,
did,
Bill?
as part of, I still am I still am a member of the resolutions committee, and we did meet virtually on June 25th to consider all of these. Now, I will tell you that there are 9 that made it through, but that night when we met, we had 17. So some of these have been condensed, wordsmithed, and they've been worked on. So I could quickly give you a brief synopsis of each one. Resolution 1 was MCAS and high stakes testing. The thought here was a 4 to 5 year moratorium given the difficulties that the state is going through. And this was submitted by the MASC Board of Directors, where they felt that it wasn't right to continue with MCAS and high stakes testing given what's going on. Some schools remote, some schools hybrid. Nobody knows what it's going to look like with numbers starting to go up, things like that. So then it was, this is basically granting a moratorium on high stakes testing until everything gets back to normal.
Okay. Questions on the first resolution? So we can do this one of 2 ways. We can go through each one individually, or we can go through all 9 and then vote collectively on all of them. Is there a preference to one or the other?
I kind of think we can probably go through all of them, because if you raise any questions about any given resolution where there's a disagreement, we can eliminate that one from the approval voting.
Okay, great idea. Thank you. All right,
Okay,
so
so
number 2.
Resolution 2 is around COVID state funding, where this resolution was presented again by the Board of Directors. They want everybody to get tested. We want the state to pay for it. Cut and dry. Okay, it's just, they talked about, a test for everybody, but they never talked about who was going to pay for it. Insurance companies have come out and said they don't want to pay for it. So now we put the onus back on the state, since they're the ones that are saying everybody should be tested.
Okay.
Resolution 3 is the anti-racism resolution, basically with everything else that's going on in the country. MASC wants to come out and say that they're not going to support any sort of racism or anything in our schools. There is no racism in the schools. They want it left that way. They don't want to be in any way viewed as portraying and supporting racism. So they wrote a resolution to say that we are totally against it. Any questions? Okay. Resolution 4, and this one has come up many, many times, lowering the voting age for municipal elections. They want to dial back the age to 16 from 18 now, figuring they could, with civics becoming a graduation requirement, they want to get students involved earlier. So they're going to petition the legislature to roll back the age for voting in municipal elections to 16 as opposed to 18. Any questions on that one?
Interesting.
Fun.
I like it. I like it. I have a 16-year-old. She's ready to vote.
You like
There you
it?
go.
Oh,
There you go. Okay, Resolution 5 is supporting an increased federal support and stimulus funding for public K through 12 education. Every district has taken a hit. I mean, look what we went through here. We didn't know when we were going to get a budget. So every municipality across the state is in the same boat. They keep talking about a second CARES Act or stimulus package coming out of Congress, but they're bogged down again. In some of the components that I have read, there is a mechanism for funding for, local schools. This resolution says the federal government should be funding the schools given the economic hard times that everybody's in. We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
Resolution 6 is the retention of Medicaid revenue. As we know, we participate, the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative takes care of the Medicaid reimbursement, the revenue, but the money goes directly to the town. We don't see it. Most of the Medicaid reimbursement comes from our students, but we don't see the money. The money goes to the town, it goes to the general fund, it goes to free cash. This resolution is saying that the money from Medicaid reimbursement should go to the local school district, not the local town.
Okay.
Okay. Resolution 7. Resolution 7 wants to, let me look at this real quick. It wants to make sure, Resolution 7 wants to make sure that there's studies done to make sure that when funding goes towards private schools, that it's being used in the right way. All right, we're held accountable on how we spend our funding. It's trying to put the private schools on the same playing field as we are. Okay?
Yep.
Resolution 8, and this one's been around forever. A member of a school committee on the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education Board of Directors. This one's come up, and I've been involved in MASC for like 13 years, and this has been on every year. The Board of Directors at DESE is made up of business people with very little education experience. So this is just trying to get a school committee member on there.
Okay.
Resolution 9 is providing equity for sexual orientation, LGBTQ students and teachers and staff. Quite simply, every student treated the same. The equity in all the schools.
Okay.
Shouldn't
And the
all
last
schools have that
go ahead.
written into their policies at this point? I'm fine with it, but at this point, shouldn't it be in every school's policies? I thought that was a state mandate.
It is in policy. However, as you go through it, I think in addition to policy, you want to make sure you have professional development around it and make sure that, there's an understanding throughout your district and you're building capacity to make sure that it's happening.
And I know it strengthens it too, but I was just wondering, okay.
Yeah, it's for legislation too, Beth,
Yeah.
to create legislation. Yep.
Yep.
Funding's always helpful.
Yeah, it is.
And the last resolution is relative to the monitoring of attendance of students during the pandemic. And one of the key points here is that the MASC petitioned the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to waive all accountability requirements regarding attendance for the 2020-21 school year, and that such regulations be exempt from sanction status on the basis of attendance when such absences are related to public health, including COVID-19. Basically what they're saying is if somebody gets sick, you really can't force them to attend school, nor would we want them. either, you know, remote's a different story, but they want everybody held to the same standard.
Attendance is an accountability item now that districts are, it's used to evaluate districts and their accountability in a given year.
Right.
Okay, any questions or concerns on all 10 resolutions? If not, then I will entertain a motion to support the 10 resolutions as presented.
So moved.
We're not going to do one at a time. We're going to do them all together.
Yeah, let's go. If there's no,
There's no
if no
rule.
one's objecting that, yeah, we'll just do we'll do them all together.
I got a thing with this age 16 though. I got to say, I'll vote.
Oh, do you want to pull it out?
We can pull it out.
If everyone else is okay with it, I'm just not a fan of 16-year-olds voting at this point in time. I mean,
Remember, these are remember the purpose of the resolutions. They're gonna rewrite everything, make it legalese, bring it to the State House in Boston, hopefully get some legislators to sign on and take it and run with it. Chances of that making it through, this has been on for quite a few years.
I know.
It just keeps coming back and they rewrite it and they twerk it a little bit.
All right. Well, if nobody else has an issue with it, it's mute for me. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, does somebody have a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made to support all 10 resolutions as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Antonella. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 5-0. Okay, with that, we have arrived at the conclusion of our meeting. Thank you all for attending and your input tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mackey, for recording. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Bill.
I'll second.
Second by Beth. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Here.